Hey y'all, it's Matinee 54.
Yeah, Jane's got a screwdriver and I got eggnog with rum.
Ooh, we're getting all seasonal and shit. Well, I'm not, you are.
Yeah, these foreigners don't know what eggnog is. Foreigners don't have eggnog, do they?
I think
that's an American
eggnog.
thing.
I don't think it's an American
If
thing.
you guys don't know what eggnog is, it's kind of like melted ice cream. Kind of like a melted...
With rum in it.
Yeah, it's kind of like melted ice cream. You don't have to put the rum in it. But it's like melted,
you can have it either way.
Kind of like melted vanilla ice cream with like a slight nutmeg flavor. It's good.
I can only drink it in small doses because it gets a little
super high in calorie.
Well, yeah.
It's all eggs and all sugar.
Well, that's what makes it good. But you know, like I said, I can't really get away with eating or drinking that kind of stuff.
For every one cup of milk that's in there, I think there's 2 eggs.
Good Lord.
And like a half a cup of sugar. It's just like that much sugar.
It's like drinking an entire pie.
Yeah, it's like drinking pie. It's like drinking pie filling.
Not that I wouldn't do that.
Or like it's almost kind of like eating cookie dough.
Okay, I've done that before.
Yeah.
Also, when I was a little kid, I used to eat sticks of butter.
Yeah. Damn.
When I was really little. And I was skinny when I was a kid. I don't know what happened. But yeah, so, all right. So this week on our matinee show, we're doing all new stuff like we usually do. However, we did not bother to get off our lazy asses and go to the theater this week. Just because there wasn't, I think the only new thing that started this week was Gemini Man. And I was like, well, I could take it or leave it.
I can push that off.
Right. It's like maybe we could go see it next week if there's nothing else. So I just said, look, there was like enough new shit this week that we didn't really have to go to the movie theater.
Hollywood's blowing. It blows.
Well, there's some good shit coming out though. There's like some new horror movies coming out. It's just like a few more weeks. That
every year so far with our experience on the AMC A list, seeing all this shit in the theater. Every year there's like maybe 5 good movies, maybe 6.
Yeah, but I think that's been true forever.
Yeah, the rest of them are just kind of garbage.
I mean, every now and then there's like a year where there's like an unusual amount of really good ones, but. I mean, when I'm looking back at years, I can only think of like a handful of good movies every year, and then the rest of them are just like
Joker was pretty
forgettable.
Good. That was one of the better ones of the year.
So, like I said, so we didn't go to the fucking theater, and then we just ended up seeing one on Netflix and a couple on Shudder. So, as I mentioned last week, we're going to be reviewing each new episode of the 2019 Creepshow series that is on Shudder original series. And like I said, we're going to be a little bit behind because they premiere, the same night that we, record the show. So we're going to be, 1 week behind. So this week, we're doing episode 2. Now, this one, again, has 2 stories, as all the episodes are going to have. The first one in this one was a werewolf/Nazi story called Bad Wolf Down.
Yeah, it had Jeffrey Combs in it.
Starring Jeffrey Combs as a Nazi.
Yeah.
I think he's played a Nazi. I think he's played a Nazi before.
Yeah, he was like an SS commander.
It's
pretty cartoonish. It's a good one, though. It's just like a real short, almost like a little short Twilight Zone episode, real well done. A lot of werewolf action, a lot of shooting, and, it's pretty cool.
This one reminded me more... visually, it seemed very much like the segments from the original Creepshow movie, because they really seemed to, go all out with, with the bright lights behind and, the patterns and shit like that. Another thing that I kind of love about this, like I said, you can say, because obviously this isn't, a super high-budget series or anything, but...
Yeah, it does a good job.
I really liked, the ways they work around that. When they do a werewolf transformation...
That was cool.
In this, it's they have the guy, and then they do, comic book pages, flipping through really fast.
Yeah, he's
transforming into a werewolf. And I was like, oh, that was super clever.
Yeah, you see transformation in cartoon, and then he's done. Boom. And it's good. It's practical effects, so the werewolves look pretty cool. I
feel like, didn't all the werewolves look kind of different from each other?
Yeah.
Which I guess that was kind of neat. I don't know if they just did that because they just were like, well, we just want to make a whole bunch of different kind of werewolves, or because they figured that, maybe everybody had their own werewolf look. When everybody gets turned into a werewolf, it has to, what you look like.
From what I remember, some of it looked like something out of The Howling, and some of it looked like Werewolf in London, and
Yeah, there were some definitely like callbacks to that. There's a lot of like Easter eggs in this, not only to like Stephen King shit and everything, but there was a lot of Easter eggs, and I'll mention one in the next segment too. But it kind of gave me a little bit, because the whole story of it, like I said, it's very short. It was actually written and directed by a guy named Rob Schrab. He was the co-writer on Monster House, which a lot of people really liked. He was a co-creator of the Sarah Silverman program. And one thing that I only found out when I looked his ass up, he is the co-director on the new MST3K series that's on Netflix. So there you go. Yeah. So that's the same guy that's doing this. Like I said, it's a very simple story. It's not like super surprising or anything like that. It's just like a group of American GIs. They waste a bunch of Nazis. Yeah. One of said Nazis is like the very Aryan-looking son of Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs gets pissed off about it. Yeah. The GIs are hiding out in this old abandoned, I guess it's an abandoned police station. Yeah. And there's a woman in one of the cells in there who is a werewolf. Yeah. And then the GIs get surrounded by Nazis, and they're like, oh shit, what are we going to do? We're going to get killed, because there was only 3 or 4 of them, and they were super outnumbered. Yeah. And I won't spoil what happens. Yeah, don't spoil it. But like I said, it's not like a super surprise. Like, you'll see it coming, but
it's an action-packed episode. Yeah. It's just action. It's not real heavy in story. It's just cool action.
And like I said, I like that it really, of all the segments that they've done so far, this seemed to lean the most into the cheesy, the camp factor. It leaned the most into like the visuals from the original movie, with like, the really saturated bright colors behind, and like, people like isolated against these like bright red light backgrounds and shit like that. It was
definitely comic book style.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely the one, that's been closest to that so far.
Over the top acting, over the top Nazi action, just everything was over the top.
Yeah, like I said, it was just like real campy and cheesy, and it seemed to just be having a good good fun with it. Nazis getting their heads knocked off and shit like that. So it was pretty rad. One guy getting blown up and shit like that. So there was some good gore in there. Now, the second segment was called The Finger. This was directed by Greg Nicotero and based on a story by David J. Scow, who's obviously a very famous horror writer. He also worked on like some cheesy movies from the 80s and 90s. Like I think he worked on the Critters movies or Ghoulies or something, I don't want to say. But yeah. This one was actually kind of a strange one, but I ended up really liking it. DJ Qualls was in this. I guess he's been like on Supernatural, and I think he was in like a lot of those kind of late teen, early 20s kind of movies from a few years back, like Road Trip and stuff like that. Like he always kind of plays kind of a dorky kind of kid, and he's super cute in this. So the whole premise of it is that he is this lonely man with and he's got like bill collectors calling all the time, and he doesn't have any friends and all this other kind of shit. And one of the things that he likes to do is kind of just walk around the neighborhood at night and look for objects. Like I guess he's like a hoarder or something like that, and like he just likes to go around and find things. Well, one night he's walking around his neighborhood and he finds a finger, and it's not a human finger. It's just like this really weird spindly finger with like kind of a big long claw at the end. Kind of looks like maybe like a witch finger or something like that. So he's like, that's very interesting. So he takes it home and puts it in his freezer, only to discover that this finger is slowly starting to grow an organism. Like there was another finger grows, and then a hand grows, and a whole arm grows, and then a whole little creature grows. Yeah. And he names this creature Bob. Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. It kind of looks like that little alien out of Alien 3. Kind of.
Yeah, or it looks like a little tiny
bony
pumpkin head.
Like a pumpkin head, bony thing, a long tail.
You know the movie Pumpkinhead? It looks like a little bitty one of those, except cuter.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't really have any eyes. He looks a little bit like a xenomorph, tiny, a little bit, but he's kind of like beigey colored.
Probably about 4 feet tall, I think, maybe 3 feet tall.
Yeah, and like he kind of runs around and stuff. Yeah. Now this one, it's kind of a weird story in the Creepshow universe, I guess, just because I can't really think of another one where, because the character played by DJ Qualls, I think his name is Clark. He breaks the fourth wall a lot. Like he seems like he's talking directly to the audience and like kind of making these. And then so it's very like cops come to the door and then like he's talking to the cops and then he closes the door and talks to us for a second and then he opens the door back up and it seems like no time has passed and stuff. So there's like an ironic thing, and I could see how that would kind of go awry. But actually, I thought it was kind of charming, and I also really liked this kind of fucked up relationship that developed between Clark and Bob. Like this little critter. I'm not going to say, like, what Bob ends up doing, but Bob, as a little creature, was, like, super cute. I feel like most of it was practical effects, like I said, because Greg Nicotero directed this, and he's super into that. Now, when it, like, moved around the apartment, like, sometimes it looked like very obvious CGI. But it didn't really bother me or anything like that. I have to say, this episode was pretty good. I still haven't seen a segment that I like as much as the House of the Head from the first one. But we're only 4 segments in.
Yeah, the new one, the third episode's out already. Just went up today.
Yeah, it just went up like an hour before we're recording this, so
though.
We're gonna like watch it later on tonight, and we'll review that one next week. But so far, I'm like digging the show. There's like a lot of good shit on here. On this show, I think I probably slightly preferred The Finger, just because it was a little more unusual, like in structure to some of the other stories that they do, and I really liked the creature. He was like kind of cute and horrific at the same time.
I like that the series has variety in it so
That's
far.
one of the best things about it, I think. It's like, well, and the nice thing about anthologies, and I think one of the reasons why I like them so much, is that they're just kind of like bite-size.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if you see one that you're like mad and really like that, then the next one might be like super awesome.
And none of these stories are ponderous, you know what I mean? They don't take a long time. They're short and to the point. They're even faster than a damn old Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, like I said, they're only 15 or 20 minutes long, so they don't like fuck around. The premises of them are kept fairly simple, and it's so they don't they don't get super complicated. I'm not saying that like some of the ones down the line might not be like that, but I really do like. And I kind of like, and I don't know if they're going to do this on every one, but I kind of like how they're taking 2 really contrasting styles of story and putting them together in one episode. Because remember, we were talking about the first one where they had kind of this like creepy psychological horror that didn't really have any gore, and then they had like this this other one that was a lot different than that. And I feel like they did that on this one as well. Like they had a really cheesy, campy werewolf story, and then just kind of like a more weird, dark humor type of story with like, you know what I mean? So
it's a good series. I'm glad that Shudder got it. I mean, Shudder, the money was well spent, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think so too. And like I said, it looks like they've got like a really lot of heavy hitters on
all-star cast and
and stuff like that. So they got fucking Jeffrey Combs, man. Jeffrey Combs. Even though he's only in it for like a few minutes, but still, it's Jeffrey fucking Combs.
Yeah,
he's the best.
He looks good too.
Yeah, he really does. He doesn't actually look that much different than the last movie that we saw him in, which was really probably aged. Yeah. What was that? Was it Beyond Reanimator or
something like that?
Yeah, it was the one at the prison.
One of those weird
whatever it was. It was a long time ago anyway. But yeah, so episode 2 is streaming now, and also they just put 3 up, but we're not going to do that one yet. So go check it out. And the next movie we watched this week was the highly anticipated Netflix original In the Tall Grass, based on the short story by Stephen King and Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son and a novelist in his own right, in case you didn't know. So I had actually been looking forward to this for a very long time. Netflix has been doing pretty fucking awesome with the Stephen King adaptations, particularly Gerald's Game and 1922, which was also very good. This one, I hadn't read the source material prior to seeing it, although I did read it afterward. And if you want to read it, it's not very long. It's, it's on Esquire's website, or at least it is as of today. So you can go and read it for free if you're into that. Because I was curious to see how it differed from the source material. And it does, like, kind of drastically. So the setup of this, it was actually directed by Vincenzo Natali, and probably best known for doing like Splice and Cube.
I like Splice.
Yeah. He also did one that I feel like doesn't get mentioned a lot when people talk about him, but it's called Haunter. I don't know. I think I saw it on Hulu or maybe it was on Netflix a long time ago or something like that. And I really, really liked that movie. It was kind of like a weird time loop movie, and I feel like it doesn't really get talked about when people talk about him. But, if you want to see it, it's quite good. Called Haunter. But yeah, so this movie, okay, so it deals with a brother and sister, Becky and Cal. And they are driving to San Diego, I believe. Now, she's like 6 months pregnant. I guess the boyfriend has like fucked off because he doesn't want to marry her, he doesn't want to be a dad, blah blah blah. So she is going to San Diego to kind of like arrange an adoption or decide what she's going to do, like when the baby comes or whatever. So they're driving through, I think it's Kansas, even though this was shot in Ontario, Canada, actually. So they're driving through Kansas, and they have to stop the car for her to throw up because pregnant. And while they're stopped, they hear a little boy in the very tall grass next to the road calling for help. Now, that's pretty weird enough. But then a few minutes later, when they decide that they're going to go in there and look for this poor little kid, they hear a woman's voice telling the kid not to tell them to come into the grass, right? And like, don't make anybody else come in here. And the reason for this will soon become apparent because Becky and Cal actually do go in there to help this little kid whose name turns out to be Tobin. And the titular tall grass is, they never explain exactly what it is. But the creepy thing about this has like a really good concept and like a really good setup. Like the first 30 minutes are just kind of like super freaky because you can think about what would it be like if you're driving through like buttfuck nowhere and you stop and like some kid is like caught in like in the middle of a corn maze or something like that, which is a thing that happens because I've heard about people getting lost in that shit. You go in there to help him and then all of a sudden, so Becky and Cal get separated. And then they're trying to find each other, and it's like, it sounds like they're right there, but then they come and there's nobody there, and then suddenly it sounds like they're on their left, and then suddenly they're on the right. And then they're like trying to find each other, and they can't do it. And it seems like they're getting farther and farther from the road, and they can't figure out why because they're not moving. It's like there's this one great scene where, he says, well, why don't you jump up, so I can see, because the grass is like 7 or 8 feet tall, and it's like, put your hands up in the air and we'll see where we are so we can, find out where we are. So they both jump up, and they're only like 10, 15 feet apart, and they're like, oh, all right, like now do it again, and now she's way the fuck over there, you know what I mean? Like it's only a few seconds later. So there's like that whole creepy aspect, and that comes pretty much straight from the story where there's like this weird, where it seems like it's making people move around and
like a space warp,
type of thing. Now, one thing that was added for the movie though was the time loop angle. Which, as far as I could determine, unless I didn't read it right, this didn't really have anything to do with the story. Because what ends up happening, and like I said, I'm not going to spoil it, but what ends up happening is that they keep running into people, and then sometimes they'll find, like, somebody, and you think they're dead, like they die, but then later on they're alive again because there's like several different timelines going on at once. Right. So it's just like this whole fucking time loop thing going on. And it's like super mindfucky, and you really have to like watch it a couple of times to like get what's going on. I think also there might be some kind of thing where, I mean, like I said, it doesn't really smack you over the head with it, but I do think there is some kind of like metaphorical thing about everybody trying to like sort out their problems, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like lost in this wilderness until they, figure out their issues. So I think there's a little bit of that, but you don't have to like read that into it if you don't want to. I should say that Patrick Wilson is in this, and like I said, everybody knows him from the Conjuring movies. He was in Bone Tomahawk and stuff like that. He makes a really, really good villain. I don't think I've ever seen him playing a villain before. I'm sure he has, but I don't think I've ever seen him playing one. And he plays a really, really good psycho in this. He plays Ross, who is like the dad of the little kid. Because there's like a whole family and a dog in there and everything. There's all kind of like... there's like some weird creepy shit. Because I should say that even though there's really no explanation for what the tall grass is, it seems like it's some kind of... it's like a field that's generated, apparently, I guess, by this fucking rock that's in the middle that has like all these like weird petroglyphs on it and stuff. So I feel like, in essence, this is kind of like a mixture of Children of the Corn meets the Tommyknockers. That's kind of the vibe that I got. Yeah. I will say, like I said, now, I liked a lot of the Netflix Stephen King adaptations. I haven't seen the show Castle Rock because I don't have Hulu, but I've heard that that's really excellent, so I'm going to have to check that out as well. They're adapting every single fucking Stephen King thing this year, I swear to God.
I don't remember it. I fell asleep during it.
I think you were doing something else, or you might have been like out in your gym or something like that.
Yeah, I must have got sidetracked. I don't remember.
Yeah, or you were out cooking, or I don't remember what you were doing. But yeah, so, like I said, I think I liked the setup of this more than... I feel like it went slightly off the rails like as it went on, like not super
It's
off
Stephen
the rails,
King, though.
but yeah, and it's like so.
He goes off the rails.
In a way, like I kind of liked the way that the director tied it up, because that's not the way the story was tied up. I think the story was left much more ambiguous. This is kind of ambiguous too, but you get more of a sense of like a total narrative, because you get like, you know, you get the idea of like a closure, like the circle coming to an end, like, you know what I mean, at the end of it, which the short story didn't really have. Like, it was just kind of left open-ended. Like I said, I didn't think this was as good as Gerald's Game or 1922, but it is for sure worth watching. It seems like it's getting sort of so-so reviews, like kind of mixed. Most people saying, you know, it's a cool concept that they didn't really do enough with, or they didn't explain it, or they explained too much, or you know what I mean. It's like everybody has their different opinions about it. But I would probably watch it a second time, just because I feel like there was a lot of shit going on in there that I missed. Because, like I said, any of these kind of time loop things, you have to watch more than once, because there's all kind of shit going on in there that's that I didn't really get that I didn't really get the first time, and then you have to like think about it. So, but it's definitely worth watching, especially if you're a Stephen King fan. Like I said, the short story by Stephen King and Joe Hill is, as far as I know, still available on Esquire's website. You can read it for free. It's in 2 parts. So go check it out. It's quite different than the movie. Similar setup, but it doesn't really go to the same place. Oh, I forgot to mention, when we were talking about Creepshow on the last segment, I mentioned earlier on that they said, oh, there was like an Easter egg in the second segment, and then I forgot to mention what it was. Now, I actually didn't notice it, but I saw another reviewer point it out, so I went back and looked it up. In the second segment, when he opens the freezer where his little alien buddy or whatever it is, where Bob sleeps, in the freezer there is a container of the stuff from the Larry Cohen movie. And it's all like frozen and iced over and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cute. I'm like, oh, that was nice how they threw that in there. So Easter eggs all
Probably
around.
no one under 40 would get that.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Although I think the stuff is on Shudder at the moment as well, because I just rewatched it the other day and I was like, oh, I forgot how fun that movie was. Yeah. But yeah, so In the Tall Grass on Netflix. Check it out. Okay, and the third movie we watched this week was one that I hadn't heard anything about prior to. It just dropped on Shudder.
Yep.
And I decided to watch it because I said, what the hell? It came out this year. It looks all right.
Is this a Shudder exclusive?
I believe it is. It did do the rounds of some festivals, but earlier this year, but then Shudder picked it up. And as far as I know, it's a Shudder exclusive.
This is another one of those movies where it shows up, and it's Australian movie, and it's like, shut the fuck up, we're going to show you how to make a movie.
just like Mad Max.
Like Mad Max, yeah. Mad Max just shows up and goes, nah, shut it. Yeah, this is how to make a movie.
And then throws a dynamite behind him and walks away from the explosion in slow motion.
And then he goes, that's how you make a fucking movie. The Australians, they don't do a whole lot, but when they do something, they do the shit right.
They do, man. I love you, Australia.
Yeah,
seriously.
They make.
Y'all make awesome movies. You got awesome fucking movies. Look, the birthday party there from Australia.
Yeah, they had
fucking Nick Cave, man.
They had some cool shit back in the 70s and 80s. You know, parallel universe Ford cars that like the XB Falcon. You know, fucking that are still legendary over here. You know, you guys do cool shit, and you guys do shit your own way, which I like that. I like that. This is a movie that's in that same vein where it's a horror movie. But it's all action, and you don't know what the fuck is going on. And then when you do find out what's going on, you're like, man, this is some weird shit. And it's got some really good practical effects from what I saw. Look, everything was practical, wasn't it?
As far as I know, yes.
And just some cruel shit happens. It's not like on the level of Saw. I wouldn't say it's torture porn, but it's pushing it. It's more like, imagine Friday the 13th 1 and 2 and Halloween, but like on roids, and a modern version of that. This is very much like a modern version of the old classic slasher
There's some
movies.
Great fucking gore in this.
Yeah. With
if you're
twist.
squeamish, do not watch this, because it will fuck you up.
Yeah, great movie.
It's pretty fucking gory.
And I like it because they kept the story very elemental. They didn't try to be too clever with shit. It's pretty simple. And it just kicks ass. It brings its own guns to the fight. You know what I mean?
We didn't even mention this is called The Furies.
It's called The Furies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe this is the directorial debut of a person named Tony DeCino.
Okay, well, so Tony shows up and goes, shut the fuck up, man. This is how you make it. Sit the fuck down. Sit the fuck
That's
down.
what he's doing.
This
is that what you're doing out there?
This is how you make a movie.
I really did love this movie.
Yeah, it's a fucking cool movie.
It's like, well, here's the thing. It's a very lean 82 minutes. It's basically straight up survival horror. A little bit like, kind of like Most Dangerous Game type of hunting humans for sport type of thing.
Yeah.
Basically what happens, you get like a very short, kind of an opening sequence with your main character, whose name is Kayla. And we established she has epilepsy. She has a best friend whose name is Maddie. They kind of have an argument in the street one night while they're out fucking around. And then subsequently, Maddie gets kidnapped, and then Kayla blacks out. Now, when Kayla wakes up, she is in essentially like a big steel coffin thing. It's like a big box.
Yeah.
And like spray painted on the top, it says Beauty 6.
Yeah.
And as soon as she comes out, she starts wondering, and she's like in the middle of this fucking, I think it's like a eucalyptus forest. The locations they used are all real. They didn't make anything up or nothing like that. It was like there's a eucalyptus forest, and even later on in the movie where they go into like that little, where all the little cabins and like ruined cabins and shit are, that's an actual old gold mine that used to be there. So they just kind of like used it just the way it was. And so she shortly begins to discover, because she's run around trying to figure out where the fuck she is. There's a really great shot where they do like a kind of a drone shot where it just goes up and up and up, and you see this forest just goes on and on and on forever. Yeah. And then like outside of it, it's just like fucking desert, just like this fucking outback. So there's nowhere for her to go.
There's a lot to this movie that reminded me of Predators, which is like Predator 3. Where people wake up and they're on, and then they realize that they're on another planet and they're being hunted.
Yeah, it is kind of a similar setup.
Dropping in it reminded me very much of that, and I'm saying go with that. That's a good premise. Take that, but there's also kind of like Jason style slashers and fucking
more like Leatherface
and Michael Myers and Leatherface.
They're wearing people's skins.
Yeah, and then there's. More happens, but you can't spoil it. You just gotta watch it. It's, you know what I mean. There's more to it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find out what's going on. Like I said, it's
find out pretty quick.
It's not a super original premise, but the way that it's set up and the way it's spooled out, like, really keeps you invested. Because not just her. I mean, as she's running around trying to figure out what the fuck she is and what the fuck is going on and where the fuck Maddie went, because she saw Maddie get grabbed before she blacked out. Also. She meets these other women running around in the woods, and it's like, so there's all this other kind of shit, and then she sees these big dudes that are like wearing skin and like carrying fucking machetes and axes and fucking sickles and shit like that, and and run from and everything. So, like I said, it's basically just straight up a survival horror, but they're just trying to get away from these beasts, as they call them. And they're trying to she's trying to keep like the other girls, like trying to find out which ones want to fuck me over, because there's all these rules, you know what I mean, that she finds out like as the game goes on.
Yeah.
So certain things happen when certain people die and things like that. So it's like very strategic.
Yeah. If you liked Predators or Predator 3, you will like this movie.
Yeah, and I said, it's...
And actually, that's my second favorite Predator movie. I like Predator 1,
I liked it a lot, too. It was like way better than it had any right to be.
Yeah, really. People didn't like Predator 3, I think, when it came out that much, but it aged really well. I liked that movie. I liked that much better than Predator 2.
Yeah.
And Predator 4? Yeah, okay.
That one was alright.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is like a really great, like I said, it did some festivals, and it's like, I don't even think it got a theatrical release up to any great extent. Not in the US anyway. And then Shudder was just kind of like, hey, check this out. And I was like, oh, okay, I will. And then I was like, man, that kicked ass. And like I said, if you are squeamish, you might want to avoid it, because there's some nasty motherfucking shit in this. I mean, there was one scene in particular, and you know me. I'm like gorehound. I can watch pretty much anything. But there was a couple scenes in this where I was like, fuck. Yeah. That is fucked up.
Special effects were really good. Direction was really good. Score was good. Acting was very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a great fucking horror movie. And it's like, you know what I mean?
Punching way above its weight. And
yeah.
I don't think they spent a whole lot on that movie, but you can't really tell that they didn't
I'm
spend
not sure. Like, IMDb said 7 million, but I don't think that because the thing about it is that if there's not a lot of information about the movie ahead of time, because I've heard about ones where IMDb said that it cost X $million, and then like the filmmakers came out and said, no, it cost more like $600,000.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So this might have cost considerably less to make than $7 million. But you can't really tell. Like I said, the practical effects in this are really good.
Yeah.
I mean, the one scene in particular that I'm thinking of that involves an axe.
An axe in a girl's face.
It looked super realistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like shit with eyeballs. There's like all kinds of shit. But yeah, like props to the fucking special effects team, because you guys did an amazing job. Also, cinematography is very nice use of like location and stuff like that. I think the forest that they filmed it in was outside Canberra somewhere.
Yeah, and this movie's absolutely merciless.
It is, yeah.
So just get ready.
Like I said, just
it's
not
cool,
for the squeamish, not for the
cool,
squeamish. But it's cool. Really good. And if you really like survival horror, game style horror,
just keep reminding yourself it's just a movie.
Yeah,
they're just playing.
It's not real.
Yeah,
it's not real.
Playing.
But yeah, seriously, it's on Shudder right now. Shudder exclusive, as far as I know. It's called The Furies, and you should definitely check it out. Highly, highly recommend it.
We don't work for Shudder, but they got a lot of guys on Tom Shitty Movies that follow me on Facebook on Tom Shitty Movies. They're joining up with Shudder. I like Shudder better than Netflix as far as
I do as well, yeah.
I mean, I would kill Netflix. I would cut Netflix off if it wasn't for MST 3000 and a couple of other little series.
I like those like true crime docu-series that they do. Right. Like they did one about the Alcázar murders, and they did one about Madeline.
For $5 a month, or you can actually get it down to like $4.20 a month.
I pay $56 for a year.
That's like $4.
I think it's $4.47 a month. It works out. Too.
It's actually punching way above its weight. They got little Hammer horror films on there, bunch of politically incorrect shit on there, classics.
Well, and they add new stuff all the time,
and it's all like Blu-ray quality.
Yeah,
Hammer horror, fucking titty fests and shit. They got it all on there.
Yeah, they just added 3
documentaries and stuff, and it's pretty cool.
And like I said, series. Actually, I think not only did they just add the new Creepshow episode, they also, I think they just now added a new series, a new season of Channel Zero, which is a really good
I don't know that one.
Anthology show. It's not an anthology necessarily. It's each season is based on a different creepypasta.
Okay.
So I saw like the first 3 seasons and I really, really liked them. I don't even remember what channel that shit was on originally. Maybe Sci-Fi. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't watch regular TV, but yeah. So that's another thing that I'm gonna have to watch later. Maybe we can review that next week, like the new season of Channel Zero.
Yeah, but out of all these little services that we have, I think fucking I think I like Shudder the best.
Well, that was the one. If I could only have one, that's the one I would keep.
Right.
Because I mean, if you have that as your pay thing, and then to be honest, there's stuff like Tubi and Vudu and stuff like that. They have so many horror movies for free that it's like, you know what I mean?
The thing is that there's commercials and interruptions and stuff.
It's actually not as many. I mean, particularly Tubi, it's not as many.
It's so glitchy on my smart TV.
I can watch it on my laptop just fine, and I don't have any problems. And honestly, the commercials, there's maybe one every half an hour.
Yeah, Tubi just was problematic on my TV.
But they have a shit ton of stuff.
I just for that fucking $5 a month, you just can't beat Shudder.
Yeah,
and that app, the way it works on my smart TV, is just perfect.
Yeah,
we've never had a problem with that app.
Yeah, we don't really have problems with it. But yeah, and like
I said,
that's the
one to get.
They have a lot of exclusives too. They tend to get their grubby little fingers on a lot of like kind of festival darlings and stuff like that, which I think was the case with the Furies, which I think it's cool that they're willing to go out there and snatch up like ones that did really well at festivals but might not get a theatrical release, because I want to see that shit.
Yeah, and the old classics like from the 70s and the 80s that you just won't find anymore on Netflix.
I was going to say, and it's like I never did review it because it fell into, it was not old enough for the retrospective and it wasn't new enough for the matinee show, but they had one on there that came out I think in 2016, 2017 called The Love Witch. And if you guys, anybody that really likes like those old school like giallo movies, check that shit out.
Oh yeah.
Because that was like
pretty cool. Yeah.
That was a beautiful looking movie. It looked like just like an old giallo movie. Like the woman, I think it was a
giallo movie.
Yeah, it was. She wanted to make it look exactly like a movie from back then. And
it looked good.
And it was like super, super cool. It was like weird. It wasn't really. It was like this weird. I guess it was kind of a horror movie, but it was like more like a weird horror romance thing, kind of. It was just very bizarre, but I really liked it, and it was especially like just looking at it, I was just like, ooh. It was just like so cool looking. But yeah, so seriously, the Furies, 2019, an Ozploitation movie as they call them.
Can't go wrong with that one.
And like I said, if you love survival horror, if you love gore,
Australian movies, if you respect Australian movies, go check that shit out.
Check that shit out. It's really, really good.
What?
What?
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
What are you talking about?